You seem hungry. Good thing your table is ready with Saturday Omaha.
Saturday, Omaha.
Eat this.
All right, so Jack, I get to hang out with you in the back of Square Donut next to this gigantic Hobart mixer with a nice, man, I could make some serious pizza dough with this thing. But I'm here to learn all about making donuts because I know a lot about eating donuts and I love Square Donut, but I know nothing about the behind the scenes, but you do.
Yes.
So let's make some stuff. What are we gonna do?
Yes, so first off, what we do, we have a premix of donut mix, and basically we'll add that, yeast and water. We have our own proportions for our own recipe for that.
Yeah.
And we'll get that started. We'll mix it in the mixer for about 30 minutes all in.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll let it sit. The next step after that is we'll divide it up into loaves, and we'll let that sit on our bench.
So I have been making a lot of pizza lately and, flour, salt, water, yeast. What is in donut mix? Obviously there's some flour in there. Are there other components in there?
It's like a base. It's like a donut base.
I'll let you explain
So
this then.
it's got all the basic components of a mix.
Okay.
It's just pre-mixed for the ease of labor and time
Sure.
and efficiency.
Absolutely.
But it's got like the flour, it's got all those things in there, and then we add in the live cultures like the yeast.
Okay, nice.
So it's a base to help us with efficiency and labor.
Okay, and I see there's some like leavening agents in there as well. But of course, when you're adding yeast, you get even more out of that. So that's awesome. And for our listeners here, that is Elizabeth Pooley, who is here, owner of Square Donuts. So for those at home that can't see this, there's a giant, 50-pound
50
bag?
pounds.
50 pounds. How many donuts do you get out of a 50-pound bag of mix, give or take a little bit?
So this will make 40 dozen plain square donuts.
40 dozen.
And then about 10 dozen puffs.
Uh-huh.
And then
Which
maybe,
are similar to Bismarck's. Most
Yeah,
people
like
know them as
Bismarck's.
Okay.
And then about a dozen all in of honey buns and twists, and then we'll have a little scrap left over for our fritters.
Awesome. And there's a picture of a round donut on here.
Unfortunately.
Where you guys put the magic in, that's how the squares happen.
Yes.
Yeah, our process and our technique is kind of what the whole thing, the specialty of, not just the shape, but
Yeah.
it's our technique with the dough
Yeah.
that makes it kind of that really soft, pillowy,
Yeah.
melt in your mouth dough
Yeah.
process.
I love the fact that the square donut is not super sweet. It's sweet. It's just the perfect amount, which I enjoy, especially when I hammer a couple of them. So awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we've got the 50-pound bag. We've got some stuff in here. Now what happens?
Now, so first thing that we'll do is we'll crumble up our yeast. And we use compressed yeast.
We got some couple of blocks of yeast here.
Yep.
Okay. An active dry yeast?
This is not dry. This is a fresh compressed.
Fresh
Yeah.
We
compressed.
use fresh yeast. Yes.
Okay.
Like it's way better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, with a fresh compressed yeast, do you have to hydrate it, or does it get hydrated as part of the mix? Because an instant dry, you have to bloom it, right?
It
Right,
doesn't
it-
have to be hydrated, to use, but we mix it up
Yeah.
because if you kind of feel a bit of it,
Yeah.
it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it, kind
it's
of wet.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a little wet. It's very, very
Kinda like
smooth.
a Play-Doh.
yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So what we'll do, because of that, it needs to be broken down so it's real fine, so it mixes evenly.
Gotcha.
So I'll take a chunk of it.
All
and
right, so
just
And it still
basically grind it
needs
up.
to bloom and ferment, but it does it more in the process here as opposed to your dry yeast where you have to let it bloom before you add the dry ingredients.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So you are now using some nice, clean, gloved hands to kind of crumble it up into a little more than a fine sand, different pieces, and of course our mixer is going to take care of that. So we're going for a block of yeast number 2.
Yep.
All right. And good yeasty smell there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, I have a little KitchenAid mixer at home that I use for some of my pizza dough. I'm pretty sure this mixer could mix my mixer easily.
We can do safely up to 75 pounds of dough in this. We don't like to do 75-pound batches because we lose control of the quality.
Oh, sure.
But we range anywhere from doing, 50 pounds on a slow season day,
Yeah.
all the way up to high peak holidays. We could be doing upwards of 250 pounds
Wow.
a shift.
Wow.
Yep.
So
Wow.
and each batch takes 3 hours from start to finish, full batch in to complete.
So, Jack, you kind of get your workout then moving stuff around on
Yep.
those days. Okay, that's fair. That's real fair.
So after this, the next thing we'll get is our water.
Okay.
Water is very important with donut and with donuts because temperature, especially taking into consideration the room temp,
Yeah.
the type of mixer you have, the friction from the milk will
Yeah.
change the temperature of the dough.
Sure.
So we have a little temperature range that we like to use based on, how warm is it in here. So we'll get that. We'll measure out the temp. We'll add a gallon now and get this kind of mixing so it's
Okay.
all incorporated. And then after that, we'll add our mix and we use a little bit of sugar
Oh, sure.
with it. So
Oh, yeah, probably helps the yeast out a little bit there,
Yeah.
too. Perfect. Awesome. So measuring the temp of the water. I do the same thing with pizza dough. Sometimes I try to get my mix to come out around 80 degrees or so my water is usually a little hotter. And you're accounting for that spiral mixer over there. The spiral's huge, so I bet you get a lot of friction off of that.
Yeah.
Without giving any Square Donut secrets away, if you're at liberty to say, about what temperature do you try to get the water? I'm sure it depends on the day, but what's your final mix temperature that you're shooting for?
We range for about 84 to 88 degrees.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Just depends on how big of a batch we're doing.
Okay.
We'll use a lower temp if we're doing a bigger batch to make sure that it's not proofing too fast as we're going through the process. If it's a smaller batch, we'll go a little hotter just because the time it takes us to loaf it and sheet it and get it to the proofer is shorter.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we've got our water in there.
Yep. So we'll do that.
All right. Here we go. The mixer's going up. Ooh, nice hydraulic bowl. I definitely do not have one of those at home.
It makes a difference in summer versus winter also how any dough produces, whether it's bread, pizza, or donut dough. When your dew points change, it affects our process, like Jack said, how quickly or how slowly we can work at the bench.
Yeah, and it's a lot cooler this evening than it has been like prior weeks. Do you have charts or anything that you adjust, or do you just know after making this so long? I say, okay, pointing to the mind, so you just know where
Unfortunately,
you
it's
need to
all in
go.
our head. We need to turn that page professionally,
Sure.
and we really need to start recording these processes. It's just kind of transforming from like the mom and son business. It's
Yeah.
now starting to get very professional.
Yeah.
So we too need to follow that.
Oh, I love that spiral mixer. So good orbital action there.
Yep.
It'll handle up to about 75 pounds, but you don't like to go that high. So
Yeah, after
typically.
that, it gets a little much to handle, and by the time we're going through the sheeting process, because it takes so long,
Yeah.
the last couple loaves of dough are a little more proofed than we would like typically.
Gotcha.
So
This
yeah.
is Victor. Victor,
Victor.
this is Dave.
Nice to meet you, David.
Victor is our diehard, loyal friend.
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me in your house here. Yes. So as we're in the shop, so we got this mixing up. AJ's over there doing more stuff. So we're already busy, and we're late in the evening here getting things going so that tomorrow when people come in the morning, they can see you for
Yeah, a
donuts.
lot of people don't, and I don't know if it's the culture today, but there's other donut shops that they purchase frozen donuts, they thaw them, and then they bake them. They don't fry them. So, but at Square Donuts, since everything's fresh,
Yeah.
we use a process between whatever pre-orders we have, and we track what traffic we've had over the past years.
Yeah.
And we kind of make a cheat sheet.
Ah. So you got a projection on what needs to happen the following day.
Yeah, just because if it's going to be a slow day, we do X amount of dough. If it's
Yeah.
going to be a busy day, we have to do X amount. But it helps us gauge. But when we're done, we're done. We can't just go in back and make
Right.
more donuts.
Yeah, that's like,
So-
good pizza, good barbecue, good donuts, it takes time.
Yes.
Time is an ingredient, and the Hobart can only fit so much, and you guys can only stay awake so long
Exactly.
to make things. And I know too, from reading your book and talking with you too, Elizabeth, that you try to maintain a good work-life balance for everybody because you don't want to burn anybody out. So
No.
and you
It's
can-
really, it's truly important, and I think even more important over the years. We've got to give our crew real life situations and breaks, and we've got to be
Yeah.
understanding about that, because if they love their job with us, we'll keep them.
the donuts taste better too if you love your job, for sure.
All that love.
For sure. So Jack, you have now lowered the bowl. You've got a little bit of sugar ready to rock here. We're gonna give our yeast some extra food there, I suppose.
Yes.
There we go. Throwing that in. Wow.
And then after that, we'll
I love seeing this at scale. This is awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so Jack, you got your 50-pound bag. Here it goes. With a deft technique, you've done this a timer a billion. So the whole 50-pound bag just up and in the bowl. There it goes.
then we'll add the rest of our water.
A little more water. So we went yeast, water, sugar, mix, and now some more water on top. And how much water, give or take, are we putting in there? It looks like
About 3 gallons all in.
3 gallons. All right, so here comes the hydraulics. We're spinning already on the spiral, and things are starting to mix together real nice. A little bit of water in the side there. So it's kind of the first bit of water incorporates, just kind of keeping everything off the sides and pulling and everything moistening together.
And like any good dough, you start to recognize the character of wet versus dry versus correct.
Oh, yeah.
If it's too wet and it's gloppy on the sides, or if it's too dry and the sides are squeaky clean, that all affects how we have to adjust things at the bench. And it affects what you're going to put in your mouth.
Yeah, well, and you were mentioning like dew point or humidity, or even just because I'm sure you have to run different air conditioning or heating back here, that you have to adjust for that. So if you do need to adjust, if I'm at home, I might be adding teeny tiny amounts of water at a time. Like, do you just kind of eyeball it and pour
You have
just a
about
little?
5 minutes to make that decision.
5 minutes.
You have about 5 minutes to decide if that's going to be wet, dry, or maybe close to on point.
Wow.
Because if you go past that, you're messing with the gluten at that point.
Wow.
You're messing with the gluten molecules, and how quickly or how slowly they mix, and you really don't want to be fussing with that after the first 5 minutes.
Wow, so a pretty small window, and we're building a good gluten network together, mixing everything together.
Yes.
And oh my goodness, so you got 5 minutes to decide whether your 50-pound bag of product and time turns out good.
Yep.
Or you maybe don't have as many donuts as you thought you needed. So.
And I suppose in worst case scenarios, you can always dip into the toolkit and pull out some solutions, but it's not ideal, especially because of the size of batches we're doing.
Oh yeah.
We can't really get away with those kind of mistakes.
Right.
So
So I have about a minute left on this.
Do you have a timer running, or is this just your eye?
We have a timer. We have it over here.
Good guy. Quite often on the show we talk about the science, and usually that's referring to our research, but writing it down, measuring and whatnot. You're truly doing the science here.
Yes.
We've got our glazed viscosity measurement. We've got 4 timers. You got watching on this, so awesome.
Yeah, I'm a science guy. I originally, before we started this, was going to go to college to be a physicist.
Oh, nice.
So my mom's more of a home cook, eyeball it, pinch of salt there, that kind of way. And I'm the exact opposite.
And you're like, we need to do some vector math on this dough. I got you. That's awesome.
that's a nice dough ring.
Yep.
So it's
Oh.
you get that nice dough ring, and that is absolutely textbook dough right there.
That is a cool thing. So
Yes.
as I'm looking at the bowl here, so that's about what, 3/4 or 2/3 of the way up, somewhere there.
Yep.
And it's a perfect ring, just a tiny ring of dough around it, and the rest of the dough is in the bottom of the bowl.
Correct.
All right, so we got a nice. Plastic dough scrapers are the best things in the history of ever. Oh my gosh, nice and flexible, so you can get everything off.
Yes.
And I'm kind of the one that's like, scrape every lid, scrape every hook. I'm the penny person.
You need
So
that extra donut bite out of there. I got you.
I'm always watching everybody and making sure they're using every ounce of everything.
So nobody gets to lick the beaters?
Right?
Oh,
Not
man.
here.
Okay.
I know, no fun. But, we do snag donuts off the trays occasionally.
As you should.
We
Any
have to taste the
defects,
proc.
you
We have
know,
to
the
taste
Quality
quality.
control.
Absolutely.
For sure. So
And we really do encourage that.
I love it. I love it. So the giant hook has come off, and we've got a little bit of flour on top there. What is our flour on top help us with?
So what we do, we do a bowl proof.
Okay.
We won't divulge times.
That's fair,
But
yes,
we'll do
yes.
a bowl proof, and then we'll do some other additional proofs in the process to hit our mark on that.
Got it. So we
Yeah.
got a bulk ferment before we're dividing things out and letting it proof there. Okay. And now we have a cart because this is a giant heavy bowl that had 50 pounds of mix plus a couple gallons of water and all sorts of stuff.
The hydraulic cart is a lifesaver.
It's so big it's got its own handbrake too. Look at that. So our mixer's off the pins on the cart. All right, so we got a cover on here so it can proof. Let everything kind of relax, let the yeast start to do their thing.
That's the love right there.
There it is. It's got a blanket. It's got a
It's-
donut blanket.
I love between this and the bench proof. I don't know if that's where my gratification comes in with working with dough.
Yeah.
Some other people will say it's it's the rolling out and the cutting, but mine is really the proofing and the loafing.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. It's
I
just
love
nice.
balling pizza dough. I that's my favorite part. In addition to after it has fermented for a while, and you pick up a dough ball, and you can tell that it's proof, that it's fermented well. And it just feels good. It feels
Yes.
happy. you
Yes,
know, and
exactly.
That's
and
awesome.
it's only somebody that works with dough would understand.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Truly.
Yeah, it really is a I guess visceral, maybe sensual, dare I say, experience just because of how it
Absolutely.
feels, and it came together well.
It's so true. When we handle the dough, I always think, we call ourselves bakers, but we really aren't because we don't bake anything in square donut.
Oh, good point. There's
So-
We make
Mary
our
and oven.
we make our birthday cakes. That's
We do
about
make
it.
our XL birthday cake donuts, the big ones, but
huh?
really we're dough handlers.
Oh, that's a good point. I never thought about it that
And
way.
I did used to when I first opened and I would hire, it's a dough handler position.
Yeah.
But I found that a lot of people don't really understand that.
Got you.
So when you switch it to a baker title,
Yeah.
more people understood.
So really, up until the point of applying heat, you're a baker.
Yes.
And then the cooking method has changed
Exactly.
a little bit.
Exactly.
I totally didn't even click because I would walk in and I'd be like, this is the bakery, but we are not baking here.
Yes.
So that's a good
And that's
point.
just something I've always picked up on. I don't know that,
Yeah.
like I said, the average person doesn't think that way, but
I love the nuance. That's fun.
we don't bake, we fry.
Love it. Love it. So Jack is checking charts, facts, and figures, and I'm guessing quantities.
So now we'll divide it out into loaves so that we can put it through the sheeter after it's done proofing here.
Perfect. That's a beast of a rolling pin you got there too.
Yes.
Wow. So now we went from instead of the plastic dough scraper, we've got a good metal
one.
bench scraper.
Unfortunately, the plastic ones don't really cut dough all too well.
Well, and I like what's kind of fun is, when I'm working with pizza dough, so a lot of times I'm like at about a 250 gram dough ball. And the way that you're balling that dough is very similar because when I do it, I fold it underneath to trap air in my dough ball. So now you've done this a whole bunch. You're not weighing this. You're doing this by hand.
No.
Do you know about how big are these individual? Do you call them loaves at
Yep.
this point? Okay, these loaves.
Ideally, we shoot between 7 and 9 pounds.
Okay.
That's the sweet spot because when we roll it out and go through a sheeter,
Yeah.
that'll give us about 4 dozen per loaf.
Got you.
So-
Okay.
When we train in the beginning, we get the scale out and all the trainees have to learn the technical side.
Yeah,
But after they do it for so long, they develop that eye.
that's awesome.
And I think that's another misconception is that, at least in the fresh bakery or fresh donut business, it is a skilled trade.
Yeah.
It is a skilled trade.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a science. You're having to, and then like we were talking earlier, to adjust on the fly to temperatures, or maybe even a flour is a little drier for some reason or something like that. Like,
It's so true. We might get a batch of yeast in that's not,
Very active.
Very active.
yeah.
We've had that quite a bit in the last 2 months.
We have experienced that, and just like I said, having that toolkit of solutions is critical.
Absolutely, yeah, and you have to adjust on the fly, otherwise there's no donuts tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and then not only the science, and then like the physical aspect, the tactile, as Jack is folding this dough, and doing so very nicely, so things are very similar, and kind of getting a feel for things. Oh, nice, gonna tuck them in a little bit there. So as you're flouring the top, is that the same move there, so they're not going to stick later when you do stuff?
Yeah, we'll cover them with the same.
So we did
wrap.
our bulk proof. Now we've put them into loaves, and they get the dough blanket again.
Yes. And we'll go a little longer on the bench than in our previous segments.
Got you.
Just so they're nice and soft when we go to roll them out and cut them.
Perfect. Yeah. What do we got coming out of the fryer now?
So this is what we call our OG cake. So it's our original cake donut.
Nice.
It is an old-fashioned recipe, but
Okay.
we don't bloom them like the old fashions that you typically see,
Got you.
because that requires a different fryer temp and a different fryer time.
Aha.
So it would slow our particular production down greatly. So we've chosen to keep the recipe but not bloom it. So you're still
Gotcha.
getting the flavor, but not
Yeah.
the cracks and crevices of the old-fashioned bloom.
Oh, yeah.
I love that, but
Sure.
it just doesn't work for
Is
us.
there sour cream in there?
Yep.
There is.
Sour
Okay,
cream,
so it is an
old-fashioned.
old fashioned. Got
Yep,
it.
it's a genuine, that recipe, it's just not bloom.
So this is our vegan dough.
Oh, okay. So we got another type of dough. So we've done gluten-free, the regular, and we've got a vegan dough coming up.
Yep. And
Wow.
it's very similar to how we do our regular yeast donuts.
Yeah.
About the only thing with vegan dough, at least this one in particular, is it likes to be a little drier and it likes
Yeah.
to proof a little longer.
Oh, okay. So you have to work with it a little bit differently.
So, yes. That, and we do a much smaller batch of it.
Well, that's awesome. So you can get a regular donut, you can get a gluten-free donut, you can get a vegan donut. You got everybody's donut. You gotta
Yes,
figure it
and
out.
we do stress that it is a shared kitchen.
Sure.
It would be really difficult to buy an additional $40,000 fryer to separate the fryer or to separate.
Sure.
So we try and work within the confines that we have, and so far so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have everything organized. You've got signs on the gluten-free, so those are the gluten-free ones, and got all sorts of things going. So
Yeah.
very organized, and everything has its own space too. You guys are clearly a well-oiled machine, because everybody knows exactly what's happening here. So that's awesome.
It took a bit to get there, but it works. It's I've heard that our kitchen is larger than a lot of people's, but I don't feel that it is, knowing the space that we do need to move within. But
Sure.
I've been told by several people, no, you're really lucky, so I'm going to take that.
That's fair. Well, and I mean, if you got to move, Jack here with this hydraulic cart and giant bucket that can fit 75 pounds, you got some room to move that sucker around for sure. No question.
Absolutely.
I think that would be my hardest thing coming in, would just be learning not to bump into people or things.
Exactly.
Would be a challenge for me.
It is.
So.
It takes some doing. It takes some doing.
Although AJ's super speedy, man. He's been back and forth and everywhere. He's like,
Yeah, AJ can do this in his sleep.
So do we have more vegan dough mixing up over there? Or what's
No,
AJ
he's
got
currently
cranking?
working on our side work.
Oh, okay.
So Oh, that is the
That is
vegan.
vegan.
Okay,
Aha.
so he's on the side work for the vegan
Okay.
and the cake donuts, so that he's knocking that out while he's finishing the cake, and we're waiting for the proof, because then if we time it right,
Yeah.
it's all sort of strategic madness.
Absolutely.
But then we can all go to the sheeter and help Jack,
Yeah.
because then he'll be rolling and putting, and we'll be sheeting.
I haven't seen any madness yet, just strategic.
It is
been
very
all
strategic.
It'll get madness
It'll get more
in
madness.
like 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah,
And then it happens.
Yeah, it'll be firing on all cylinders.
Up until the sheeter starts moving, it's pretty chill.
How long does it take you to make tomorrow happen?
I mean, we say an 8-hour shift, but
Yeah.
obviously the variable there is what day of the week it is, how many orders we have,
Sure.
and what has our logged traffic been for the
yeah.
month, the day of the week, whatever of the year. You know, on a slow day, like when Jack and AJ come in on a Monday night, Tuesdays are really slow.
Yeah.
They'll have one 50-pound batch to do. They'll be out of here in 4.5 to 6 hours, depending on problems.
Yeah.
You throw us into a Friday or a Saturday night, we can hit that 8-hour mark. If we talk a holiday, our 3 biggest holidays are Easter, Halloween, and Christmas. They've done between 10 and 12-hour shifts.
Wow.
Closer to like 14.
Yeah,
14.
that's probably
And then
14
worked
hours.
their other job too.
Exactly.
And
And
Jay's nodding like, yes.
I mean, thankfully it's only maybe between 3 and 4 times a year
That it's that
hits.
crazy.
But when it hits, it's rough.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Got you.
So we make sure to bring in food and, you know, whatever we got to do to get that adrenaline going and keep them up.
The nice part is you're real close to Porky Butts and Cow Now Tie over there, so you know, worst case, you can run some
Oh,
food
yeah.
or something.
Yep.
Do you and Blaine ever exchange donuts for brisket? Is that a thing?
We have never bartered, but we did way back in 2020 when I was stressed out of my mind.
Yeah.
He wanted to do a special with our fritter.
Oh.
And I think I looked at him like, I don't know what I'm doing yet in my business. I can't even think about collabs right now.
Sure.
But I think Blaine and I might revisit that.
I like it.
He wanted to work our fritter into something with the slaw or the pulled pork or something, and I'm game for that now. So,
I'm thinking even like because he does the Blaine burger. I wonder what that's
Oh,
like with
yeah.
donut buns.
yeah.
Anyway.
And we did a special with Block 16.
Oh, nice.
They wanted to do a donut burger.
Okay.
So they used our donuts, but
Yeah.
we learned that you can't use our fresh first cut donut to hold that.
Oh.
So in hindsight, if we
Yeah.
ever did it with them again, we would use a second or third cut donut because it's tougher, chewier,
Can hold
and it'll
up.
hold.
Yeah.
The minute we went in to get that, our donut was just flat.
Oh,
Well, I
man.
never had it.
Oh, you didn't? I went in and had it.
Oh man.
Oh, that's right.
I was the one making them.
Yeah. So we learned a lesson there, and yeah, you need definitely a denser donut for a substantial sandwich.
That's fair. Well,
So-
speaking of collabs and those type of things, I was down at Control Coffee talking to Jenny Macis,
Oh, yeah.
wife of Nick Macis of Muchachos, and was mentioning I was going to get to come out and see you, and she's like, you know, Nick got donuts at Chacho's. We need some down here at Control. So I was like,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Oh,
fun.
they're good people.
They are.
We're really
They are.
close.
We have
with-
such a good food community. for
Yeah,
sure.
we really do. Just lots of genuine concern and care, and
Yes.
we do like to lift people up. And
hardworking folks, and you know, everybody that I've encountered in the service hospitality industry, a lot is that you want to see that smile on the customer's face, and
100%.
you know, that heart and everything that you guys, you know, the time that you're putting in hours before the doors open, you know, so because
Yep.
the shop has been closed for a while, it's not going to open for a bit, but here you are.
The easy part, I've always said, the easy part is when we turn the open light on.
Oh, fair enough, because all the
That's
prep
that's
is
the
done.
fun part.
That's
These
fair.
guys back here do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
We just put the smile on and sell.
Yeah.
And then deco. We have a shift that comes in at 3 a.m.
Oh, right
to
on.
deco all the donuts.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
we're around the clock.
Wow. Okay, so yet again, we look over at Victor, and here comes another set of donuts. What is coming out
Those
now?
are our blueberry.
Blueberries coming
Yeah.
out now.
And that is the last of the cake donuts for
Wow.
the night.
Do you have to change out the fryer oil nightly, or is it reusable? Because I know some places like to use it several times.
So we reuse it. Typically though, because donuts absorb oil and
Yeah.
it evaporates off,
Oh, you got to replenish it.
we gotta replenish it.
Aha.
So we don't fully change out our oil
Sure.
every night. We do that about once a quarter, but we typically go through about 50 pounds of oil a night, which
Wow.
that's what he is doing right now. He's grabbing
We're
a
restocking.
block. Our oil comes solid at room temp, which is
Oh, interesting.
very handy, but it's also a pain if we really need to fill it back up. 'Cause otherwise
Yeah.
it melts. We have the top fryer that you see, and then
Yeah.
there's a vat underneath of it that holds extra oil.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we have like a little valve at the bottom that'll drain it.
Yeah.
We'll drain the top oil at the end of the night through 3 filters.
Okay.
And that'll get 99.9% of the stuff out of
Solids
it.
out there. Yeah.
And then we'll refill it back up, and it'll look basically brand new. Back when we started, the filters that come with these, despite being only a donut fryer, they don't filter out flour.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which I thought was very
kind of neat, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So our way of cleaning it at the time was to just drain it and change out the oil every night.
Oh my.
It was awful.
And expensive.
Some behind the scenes business stuff. Oil prices have about tripled since COVID started.
Oh my goodness. Boy, between that and eggs, Jiminy Christmas.
So we were doing a couple $100 oil change every night.
Oh my goodness.
So luckily we found a way to filter it without having to change out, hundreds of pounds of oil.
So Jack's science comes in yet again for the filter. I love it.
100%.
I love it. Super cool.
I don't know what we would have done had you not figured that out. I mean, like he said, it was, and the labor.
Yeah.
It was.
That and the risk of somebody hurting themselves.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was
your
bad.
hot oil and, oh my goodness.
Yep.
Wow.
It's like a loaf of butter.
Yes, I had a fan of the show ask about, how donuts get glazed so evenly. So that glazing table is pretty handy right there. But definitely, Elizabeth, watching you do that, and Victor, like there's some art to making sure that you don't just douse them.
It's one of the things when we hire bakers. I like to have a specific training on this.
Sure.
And I like to have them practice the paddle dry. Then we actually make a batch now, and we actually have them just glaze the wire racks so that when they actually work, we're trying to eliminate a little bit of that.
That
makes sense.
And there's a few different kinds of glazers. This is considered like, I don't know, wet or like hot glazer.
Okay.
There's ones where you sandwich the donuts between two screens, and you flip the whole thing into the glaze and then flip it back.
Yeah.
So if you ever see at a donut shop where literally there's like a very sharp line of glaze or icing, that's from that.
You'll know if it's hand or machine.
Oh, I love the behind the scenes.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So ours, we glaze over them, and then when we do our icing, we hand dip them. So you'll get more of like a drip.
Get that drip.
Yeah.
If you ever talk to our decorator, I have a rule on how many drips I like to see on each side of a donut. That's how much I drive them crazy.
Got it down.
But it's important.
Sure. Well, you want them to look their best and consistent in the case.
Absolutely.
So does this table have? Is there a heater in there, or did you?
No.
Okay.
This table isn't heated. We work with the temperature of the donut. So we can cut back not only on expensive equipment, but whatever we can use to our advantage.
And do you have to remake your glaze every night then?
No.
We make our glaze about once a week.
Got you.
I made some tonight, so this is.
Oh yeah, so I see you've got a nice drain
fresh
on the bottom and a nice clean bucket there, so you can.
And
that's
then
smart.
when we get done with running our cake program, we filter this out so we can get all the crumbs out, all the chunks. We don't want you getting a glazed raised donut that has any chunks on it.
Oh yeah. Oh
It's got to be, again, for Elizabeth at Square Donut, it's got to have that visual.
Yeah, for sure.
So we strain, clean that up while Victor's getting ready for the big round of the yeast raise.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I love how there's like this sense of impending glazed raised madness. Like the tension is building in the kitchen right now.
Yes, it is.
Like
Once we start sheeting, it's usually like normally like we'll have the music up really loud and nobody talks. It's just like this.
Just wow.
It's just like that. And then we get done, we're like, okay.
We got 5 minutes.
Yeah. 5 minutes, reset. What do we got to clean up? Things like that.
So Jack, is the action about to pop off? Is that what's about to happen? All right, I better grab
the
a
storm
slug of
is
water.
brewing.
Yeah, grab a drink of
Elizabeth
water.
behind.
I'm going to get Victor's cake donuts out of here.
So Jack, so you've used that giant rolling pin. You've got it rolled out once, and we're going into the sheeter now.
Yep.
All right. And these are for the glazed raised, the signature square donut.
Yes.
I haven't seen any squares happen yet, so I'm curious to see what occurs here.
And for those that don't know what a sheeter does, there's basically 2 sets of rollers in here, and we can set the thickness of each.
Gotcha.
So that it creates a nice, even, consistent thickness throughout the
Perfect.
whole sheet.
So you get it started by hand with the roller, then into the sheeter.
Yep.
Got it. And just one time through the sheeter, so you don't need to run multiples. Got it. And so positioning underneath by hand.
And
Boy, that's a good looking piece of dough.
what I'm doing now is I call it relaxing the dough.
Yeah.
Because when you roll it out, if you think of it like a rubber band, as you roll it, you're stretching that rubber band.
Yeah.
And if you keep it stretched, as you cut it, it's going to snap, and instead of getting squares, we'll get rectangles.
This isn't rectangle donut.
No, this is square donut.
This is square donut. Does the flour help keep the our press here from
Yes.
sticking to?
So if we don't flour it, they'll just stick to that and roll up in there,
Look at it go.
versus being a nice clean cut.
So so that press there cuts them into squares.
Yep.
I'm assuming the small triangle at the end goes away. There's no triangle donuts here.
Nope. And
Oh
then,
wow! So AJ and Victor are now removing the donut holes from the donuts, so they're actually donuts.
Yep. So then, after we get enough of these, right over here on this table, we'll assemble our braids of donut holes.
Awesome.
And that's how we fry them. We do baker's dozens.
So about how many did you just crank out with that first run of the sheeter there?
So that's probably 4.5 dozen.
4.5 dozen. Wow. Now, is the square cutter mold item that you have there, is that a custom thing for Square Donut?
Yes.
Got you.
Most of these, they're called rotary cutters.
Rotary cutters, okay.
You'll see very popular ones are Bismarcks, obviously circles, and for whatever reason, the hexagon shaped or octagon shaped
Oh, interesting. Okay.
is a very popular mass-produced choice of rotary cutter also.
So it sounds to me like, Jack, so your investment in the science of baking and donuts, it sounds like you've done a lot of research into the world of what is out there in baking.
Yes.
That's awesome.
The other side of it, too, is with squares, because they're square-shaped and because it's dough and that cut has to be very precise, there's no automation to making a square donut.
Wow.
Versus
Wow. Yeah.
a circular donut. There's literally a machine the size of our fryer that will do everything but mix the dough. It'll cut them out, it'll proof them, and it'll fry them with one click of a button. Versus with squares, we have to do it this way.
Wow.
So now they're
over
loading
to the
them
proofer.
into our proofer. Fortunately, that proofer sucks. I want a new one for Christmas, Mom.
Jack wants a proofer for Christmas.
I know he does, and I understand, and I want to get it for him, but Mama's got a couple other priorities before that goes on the list.
What makes that proofer challenging?
It has a single door, so every time we open,
Oh,
air goes out.
Everything goes out.
And the new one has individual slots for every tray. Well, every 2 trays.
Oh, so as you're right, because you're stacking it from top to bottom, and every time you go, your heat goes out versus just being able to do individuals.
Yeah,
I
so
see.
all of them in this one get affected versus it would just be a couple in the new one.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, so while they're knocking that out over there, I'm going to get Victor's glaze ready.
Oh, for now the squares.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And try and get kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff cleaned up and reset while they're knocking that out.
That's awesome.
And then I'll
because
join
we've
them.
totally flipped processes here, right?
Yep, 100%. And like in our donut holes, you'll notice because of the type of fryer we have, we can't free-form fry our donut holes. We have to kind of put them in what we call a little braid
Oh,
so that they stick together
okay.
in the fryer and we don't lose them.
Okay, so a braid of donut holes. Was that something that you learned from the original owner? Or
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
that was part of the deal.
And if you'll notice, something we did change from the original owner is we always do 13 in a braid.
Oh, so you get a baker's dozen braid.
You either get a baker's dozen and or it gives us a little percentage of loss.
Yeah.
Anything like that, or a taste test or We just have extras, but we do sell them by the baker's dozens.
Jack, I saw that. What happened? We had a sticky donut.
So I don't know what happened. Sometimes they have a mind of their own. I feel like I could put a whole bucket of flour on them sometimes, and they just want to be a part of the cutter. So occasionally that happens. That's why we got to watch them as they first come through.
So the remaining dough that comes off there, are you able to combine it and run it back through the sheeter then?
So what we'll do with that, that's the second cutting of the donut.
Oh, that's what you were talking about, second or third cuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the scraps. Each time will then be used as the next cutting. So the squares is what we call the first cutting. The scraps will be reloafed, proofed, and then we'll run it back through and create our puffs or Bismarcks. And those are the second cutting.
Do you have to reproof because we basically smashed them before, so now we need to proof them again and let them get bigger again?
Yeah, and while they also proof together, it'll kind of fuse the dough back together. So it'll turn into a nice homogeneous loaf.
Instead of having a piece of dough within a piece of dough or something.
Yeah, and then it just all falls apart when you go to sheet it or fry it.
I've definitely run into kind of similar things with pizza dough because I'm not great at eyeballing. So I try to cut a 250-gram dough ball, and I'm like, oh, I'm off. I need a little bit more, so there's one piece.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, make sure that everything's together so it's a dough ball and not Russian nesting dough balls. AJ's taking them off of the belt. Victor's running them into the proofer. Jack's over here with yet another one. We got upper deck and lower deck dough balls now.
Yeah, that's the vegan. So it was done with the foolproof.
The vegan gets its own blanket and shelf.
Yeah.
Got it. Boy, that flour on the outside makes a world of difference because you just picked that up and it came back off of your arm. Well, that batch came through real clean.
Oh yeah.
Also, it's impressive watching you transfer your initially rolled dough over to the sheeter because if I did that, it'd probably take me too long. It'd be halfway down my arm to the floor, and you're just like whack whack, and it's on there. That's awesome.
Luckily, donut dough isn't quite as stretchy and soft as pizza dough when you handle it, so the chance of it, tearing off and through transportation isn't quite as much.
Elizabeth is on the parade now of the braid.
I just kind of float for the most part.
Good. Yeah, you've moved to almost every station, just kind of helping out. So is there usually 4 at night or 3?
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights there's 2.
Oh, 2. Wow.
Thursday nights 3.
Uh-huh.
Friday and Saturday 4.
Gotcha.
Busy season, I'll add a 5th, whether it's me or another body.
Yeah. Wow.
Kind of keep that going.
That's the interesting thing for you being the baker as well as the business owner and everything is figuring out the logistics of all of those things, whether it's staffing, how many people in the kitchen, product. Oh, my gosh.
That's why, we talk. I go and speak to high school students a lot. I go to speak to the business classes and stuff. And I'm always very careful to tell them that be careful if you get into a 9-to-5 and you don't like it or you think this or that. If you're going to be opening up a small business, you're basically going to take that 9-to-5 and you're going to add 18 other jobs. So be very careful when you think about opening a small business because, I could be thinking about payroll and orders and what I need for next month's DOM and who I just need to hire while I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people who start off think about that.
So Elizabeth, you're putting the braids together, and then AJ is cranking a little bit of water, I'm guessing, to help the braids stick. Is that what's happening there? Gotcha.
Yep.
That's cool. What a great use of the donut hole.
There's always going to be something in business that's a pain, but what's a donut shop without donut holes?
Right? There's a craving for, at this point, almost like I want gnocchi.
Yeah, right?
Flour down and keep the braids from sticking.
Yeah, we put them kind of in between first because when we spray them down, then we have to move them in the flour so they don't stick to the proofing sheet.
Ah.
So
And so the trays that you have, so that's the proofing sheet.
correct.
So there's holes in there, I'm guessing, in case flour built up or however you want. Or is that just to let,
Well,
that's
this is
probably to
the
let
tray.
heat and the
Yep, let the humidity through here.
humidity through.
And this is a nylon base.
Ah, okay.
And they're actually the biggest misconception of proofing sheets
Uh-huh.
is everybody's like, oh, they're dirty. No, they're seasoned. It's
Sure.
just like a cast iron skillet. You don't want a clean, like fresh, because they'll stick.
They'll stick.
You need that seasoning, that flour, and a little bit of that oil. You really need that. So,
it is familiar with donuts now, so it can do its job.
yep, exactly.
Nice.
So we are, just so you know, Dave, we
Yeah.
are 4.5 minutes away from Victor frying the square donuts.
Oh wow. Okay.
I
So-
don't know that you'll be here for the actual Bismarck part.
Sure.
But because that's another proof, a cut, another proof here. But you will definitely see the completed the donut process.
Love it.
For sure.
Love it. That's awesome.
So there's an identifiers when Victor starts to fry. There's identifiers in the donuts if it's underproofed, overproofed, or just right. I'm gonna
interesting.
get out of your way, bud.
And what do you look for?
So we call the belly buttons of the donuts here.
Uh-huh.
We look for a little bit of a swollen belly button, but not overly. Like right here, you can still see the ring,
Oh yeah.
but it can't be swollen in.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But it can't be a good solid cut either.
And so if it's swollen in, is
It's
that
overproofed.
overproofed? And if it's straight, it's underproofed?
Yes, and what that produces as an end result, the underproofed donut, when he fries it, you're going to see a lot of bubbling of the donut. It's going to be kind of a pain.
Uh-huh.
If it's overproofed, it'll kind of look normal.
Yeah.
But by the time it sits on a rack for about 15, 20 minutes, it looks old, wrinkly, like it. And I'll just let you step in there.
Victor,
and-
if I stand here, am I out of your way? Okay. About how long does it take for him to run end to end?
110 seconds.
110 seconds.
Yep.
So we have square donuts coming down the conveyor into the fryer, 4 at a time coming off, and then the conveyor's moving them down, flipping them over. Here they come, looking tasty. Jack, what do you think? They looking good?
They're a little underproofed, but our proofer has a characteristic where the back side of the proofer proofs much faster than the front side.
Aha.
So the first row of donuts typically on each tray are a little underproofed, and then the last row on them will be a little closer to overproofing.
So hashtag Jack still wants a new proofer for Christmas. Got
Yes,
it.
I do.
Got it.
They call these technically blisters.
Okay.
That is from being underproofed.
And is that the overproof or the underproof?
Under.
The underproof.
Overproofing, if we don't have any right now, which is a good thing. I personally would prefer slightly underproofed donuts to overproofed.
Okay.
How we can tell while they're being fried if they're overproofed, they'll look wet almost on the
Oh,
top.
interesting. Okay.
Because these, they look fairly dry on the skin of them. Overproofed ones will soak in a little more oil, and because that dough is a little more hydrated and soft from overproofing, they'll look a little wet, and then when they cool down, they'll shrivel up.
Oh,
So-
we don't want that.
So yeah, and it doesn't affect the taste too much,
Sure.
but they will taste a little more oily. And then obviously when we go to glaze them or something, you'll see that shriveled wrinkliness through the glaze.
Got you. So Jack, I saw the hand test there. Was that the I'm checking temperature so they're cool enough to glaze move?
Yep. Fun fact, if you didn't know, the back of your hand is much more sensitive to heat. So if you're ever doing like a little hand check, if you use the back of your hand, it's much easier to tell.
That's
I
my
like
son.
that. I like that. I love the science and art and cooking and everything that has gone in here. This is fantastic. Elizabeth on my left there, glazing the squares.
I like perfection. We eat mistakes only.
Square donuts, not rectangles.
Correct.
Here, we need square corners, even blaze.
Yes.
So we had. I don't think we really had any rectangles.
We haven't had trapezoids with this team. Usually we'll notice with the new trainees, there's several weeks of, learning curves there.
I could see you ending with a rhombus or if you weren't careful.
And, the assumption is they'll be square, but once they go on here and we touch them, you got to figure how many times we actually touch them.
That's a good point, because once you pick it up to move it, every time you have an opportunity to have not square.
Exactly.
And there is I would say the most mechanically challenging aspects of this is relaxing the dough properly, and then the art of picking them up and keeping them square.
Yeah.
What they do over there is critical.
Yeah.
Because if we don't relax it over there, and it runs through and it pushes and it pulls, it stretches it. And for the people who know about sewing, there's always a bias in fabric.
Okay.
There's a bias in dough. There's a bias in steak when they say cut it on a bias.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So same thing. If we don't relax it and it goes through, it doesn't matter what you do, it'll never be square.
Wow.
So it's the relaxation part, getting that air under there and getting that relaxed is critical.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I was watching Jack over there do that, and then AJ and Victor, they're picking them up with like a thumb towards the hole and then a scoop underneath. You're right. That is super critical. Like
It's
how many?
more like this
Yeah.
than this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not a claw machine grab. But
Correct.
a nice gentle. You got to gently lift your donut. You don't want to be aggressive with your donut.
Yep.
And something that the listeners won't be able to know, that belt that's on the sheeter actually is dimpled. It's not a perfectly smooth
Well, now they know
material.
because you just told them.
Yeah.
So this is good. So,
So
the
as they get cut, it actually perforates that edge. So they're still, after they go through, they're still technically connected.
Yeah.
It's just a very thin, loose, last little piece of dough holding it together.
Got you. I'm glad you mentioned that about all those things, because watching them go through the press or the mold there, you're like, oh yeah, and it's square.
Yeah.
And then how many other opportunities do we have to make it not square?
Exactly. Exactly. And we always want to remember with donuts, the less you touch the dough, the more tender it will be.
Oh,
And
is that a
this
fresh
hot
off the?
There's something
And
very,
if you don't want us
very
touching it, we'll get you
few.
one. With,
No.
I wash my hands constantly,
I
so
am fine. You guys it's still nice and warm.
it's
Oh my gosh.
It's an
incredible.
experience
Here we
that
go.
a handful of people have had as an actual fresh.
Buddy,
There's nothing like it in the world.
that is a transcendent donut experience, hot off the fryer. Oh my gosh.
It's incredible.
I truly have enjoyed seeing everything from raw ingredient to literally there it was for me to hold in my hand and eat, and every step along the way while we got to see a whole bunch of other things happening. Thanks for letting me see some of the behind the scenes and kind of how
Absolutely.
things have happened, and the labor that yourself, Elizabeth, and Jack and Victor, AJ, putting in here, just wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man.
And there it is, with yet another alarm. The Square Donut crew continued. I departed having had my delicious donut and experiencing behind the scenes. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. My thanks to everyone at Square Donut, and my thanks to you for listening. Again, hope you enjoyed it. See ya. Bye. Our show is recorded and produced by Saturday Omaha. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as email SaturdayOmaha@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and stay hungry.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this.